Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Ecuador Insider Podcast. Jesse, Carl, Brandon. It's been a while. We apologize. We've been through a whole bunch of fun stuff here at the company, and we're ready now to restart talking to you guys in that conversation because, at the end of the day, what this YouTube channel is all about is giving you real information. What is life really like here, actually? We've been here a long time, and we enjoy talking about this stuff, so welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. A couple of quick orders of business. Our Vilcabamba Lifestyle Retreat, our 5th Vilcabamba Lifestyle Retreat, is kicking off in July. We'll have a link to that in the description, so if you're interested in that, check it out. It's a great time. Hopefully, we'll put a little link also, maybe up or down, to a video talking more about that. So if you want to check that out, please do so. So let's jump right into it. We've got a couple of updates, and we'll have a conversation as well on safety, which is a topic of conversation these days in Ecuador and all over the world. And we'll talk about a bunch of interesting stuff. So thanks for tuning in. Quickly, Ecuador has changed their gun laws, which is interesting. Some folks, of course, will be in favor of that. Some folks won't. But they are changing. So Ecuador, it is now easier to own a firearm and to carry a firearm than it was previously. You always could own firearms here, but it was pretty restricted, and they weren't allowed to be carried on the street. And it's now less so. Some of those details are still unclear at the recording of this podcast. Those will emerge in the next days, and we'll probably talk about it again. But for you gun enthusiasts out there, or you self-defense enthusiasts, it just got a little friendlier. So worth mentioning. That's something worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. I want to jump right into safety because I think a lot of people have that question, right? I think if you grew up on Hollywood, then you think of Latin America or South America, and if you haven't traveled or lived there, and you probably got some weird images in your head, right? And then maybe you go on a message board and somebody's freaking out about something, and you wonder, what's safety like? So, I want to open this up to a few minute conversation on what we feel, our opinion on safety. Everyone's going to have their own angle and their own viewpoint. Of course, probably the three of us, have slightly differing views, even perhaps. But let's talk a little bit about safety. So I'll just start and share from my perspective. So I grew up in Vermont. I then lived in New York City for about 15 years. I spent time in Massachusetts and Connecticut in areas that were more safe, less safe, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where my perspective comes from. Ecuador in general, if you look statistically, is a safe country. Now, that being said, there's areas like anywhere that are absolutely not super safe, right? So there's, Guayaquil, for example, is not what I would consider a safe city. You can still go to Guayaquil. I go there all the time for different things. You can go, you can do what you got to do, but you got to watch yourself. There's places you wouldn't go. Again, just like any city in the world, there's places you wouldn't go. There's times of night where you would watch where you're at and where you're walking and all those kinds of things. You got to be careful about taxis, and there's things to watch out for in Guayaquil. There's other places that the border towns up north, for example, on the coastal border up north, even inland up north as well. There's some dangerous, relatively dangerous areas. The southern border towns that are on the coast, they're not super dangerous, but again, there's activity, there's things that go on there that you got to watch yourself a bit. It's not a place like I'd set my life up in, for example. But most of the country is pretty safe. The Orient, the Amazonian region, is essentially 100% safe. You never hear about crime in the Amazonian region to speak of. In the Sierra, where we are in the mountains, would be considered the second, safest region after the Amazonian region. The coast is not quite as safe as the other two. And then here it's kind of area by area, right? There's some parts of Quito that would be a little bit shadier. This region, Loja, Vilcabamba in general, is very safe. So, crime's a little bit different here, right? You don't have as much, you don't have as much sort of violent crime that we would think of you do amongst the there's cartels on the coast that you hear about that get into little spats and little where they're shooting each other occasionally, right? So you have some of that stuff, but you don't have citizens often being targeted in terms of violent crime. What you do have is some petty crime. You do have some petty theft. You know, people are more likely to take a shovel than they would be back home. So petty theft, I think that's true in all of Latin America, is just a little bit more common than it would be back home. This particular region, you know, the culture is very traditional. So children are responsible to their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and their community. So you don't, in this region, like, you don't see graffiti and you don't see kids out smoking weed and causing trouble, and you know, you don't have that sort of stuff that we're very used to in the States, right? You don't have that stuff, and people here care about their communities. So there's definitely, you know, that I really like that part of the culture here, especially in this region. People are very proud of this area. They're proud to keep it clean. They're proud to keep it safe. So that's, you know, that's just true from my perspective. Now, there has been times in Vilcabamba where there's been break-ins, where there's been sort of a crew that rolls through, and they're never from here. They get arrested eventually, and you find out where they're from, but they're almost never from here. So there'll be sort of a crew that comes through, and for some period of time, I've been here 10 years. I think it's happened 3 times since I've been here. Right when I got here, there was maybe a few months like that, and then somewhere around, I don't know, some years later, there was another little stretch like that, and then just recently one ended. So people were there was some robberies going on. The community organized. The police got involved. The people got arrested. I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that, and then it stopped. And that's kind of been the cycle since I've been here. But overall, for me, you know, I've got 3 kids, including a 14-year-old daughter. You know, she walks around and does her thing. You don't even think about it. People don't worry about getting robbed on the street, or, you know, nobody's getting beat up on the street or anything like that. Again, there is an occasional home break-in, and that's kind of about it. But
and those seem to be opportunistic crimes. Like the crews are running in and they're targeting people that are either single sometimes, or people that may not have security at their house. They're intended. These are definitely opportunistic crimes, not just general randomness. So
Sure.
the fact that they're coming in and they're putting a stop to it in the community, the really cool part of the little, you know, wave or whatever you want to call what recently happened here is the community organized. Expats and local Ecuadorians, they organized together and put a stop to it. Nobody was happy about it. Nobody wanted to see it. It was really awesome to see everybody come together and really put a stop to it. And working directly with the local police, it was pretty awesome.
Yep. Yeah, there was a few community meetings where the police called for a meeting with the local authorities from Loja and the people from here, and people got to ask questions and strategize about how to put an end to this. Of course, the police helped people with improving their security system on their properties, just give people some ideas, some strategies, some solutions, you know, to prevent robberies, break-ins. But like Jesse said, once these guys were arrested, it basically stopped. From what I understand, nothing else.
I haven't heard of anything since then.
In our neighborhood, we have a WhatsApp group for all of the neighbors. So anytime there's someone suspicious, an alarm turns on, the dogs are barking at night, people will start exchanging messages, take a look. You know, so far nothing has happened. But yeah, neighborhoods are getting organized like that. There's a big WhatsApp group, general security for all of Vilcabamba. There's hundreds of people on there. The police, all the police officers that are based here are on the group. So anytime there's something suspicious, someone takes a picture, sends a voice note, hey, and the police goes right away. And actually, that's how they were looking for these thieves that one night, where the community got together. Someone was robbed. They sent a message. People went right away to that person's house. The police came. You guys went out. I went out as well. There was probably at least 50 or 60 guys.
Yeah.
People with sticks and stones, and you know.
We had baseball bats.
Well, it's like a real community watch. You guys are probably part of neighborhoods that have community watch groups. It's like that here, and but it's almost more real here. It's more involved. It's not just, hey, we're having
more
a community.
communal, it's more tangible.
Yeah, it's like people actually care. We've got business owners and community members and gringos and everybody working together directly with the police, and the police are heavily involved when there was something like this. So it was really impressive to see everybody come together and really make a difference and put a stop to it. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was very inspiring to see how many people showed up and went out, and mostly local people. Of course, there were some expats, but a majority were locals. And you could see, the general feeling was like the local people hate the kind of when this stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's bad for the reputation. It's bad for business. It's bad for tourism. It just creates a shadow over Vilcabamba. And it's not something that happens a lot, but whenever it happens, everyone hears about it. So some people, of course, are a little anxious about these things, but it looks like we put an end to it this wave.
Yeah, and that's some great perspective that you hit on, Carl, because only being down here for almost 2 years now, it's still fresh in my mind what crime is like, growing up just outside of Chicago and living in the suburbs. And you can see here, because it's such a small town and people know each other, word travels really fast. So when you have a place that's generally safe and much safer than anywhere I've lived in the United States, even rural areas, when you look at the actual crime that's happening here relative to places I've lived personally in the States, I'm allowing my kids to do things I would never let them do, even some rural areas that I used to live in. But the point you hit on, Carl, is that when you live in a place like this, where it generally doesn't happen and it's not common, when it does happen, people tend to not necessarily overreact, because it still sucks. It's real. You don't want it, but it's almost like overreacted to, and everybody talks about it and everybody posts about it, and you're seeing it everywhere, and then it becomes almost overstated in a way. It still doesn't take away the severity or the realness or the downside of it, but it's almost talked about by everybody, and then all of a sudden that's the only thing everybody's talking about, right? So, but the perspective is that on a relative scale, it's much less here. It's much safer than anywhere I've lived, and I believe that because I allow my kids, I make different decisions for my own children, and I think we all have done that, and you see that, and that's the reality for me, coming from where I've come and being here, that sometimes the fear side of things doesn't need to take control. If we keep it in perspective and we do our due diligence and we have appropriate discernment on decisions we make as a community, things change, and you can have a real impact and not live in fear here.
Yeah, and a quick side note, our office in Vilcabamba is downtown. Half of our staff is Ecuadorian, or more than half of our staff is Ecuadorian.
Right.
When these things were happening, I feel like sometimes expats will just talk to each other, but they won't really get the local perspective. We're really immersed in the local community here. Our offices, all of the businesses around our offices are owned by locals. People would come talk about these things, and just repeating, the general feeling in Vilcabamba is local people here want to get rid of anything, any delinquency, any crime, anything that gives a bad image of Vilcabamba, so people that was the general feeling. And sometimes expats, if they don't really mingle so much with the local, they think that maybe the Ecuadorians don't care about the expats. If an expat gets robbed, whatever, it doesn't matter. That was not the case at all.
Right.
They actually, they know that tourism is important here, that we bring, positive things for the economy here, and that these things are
Well, and
really bad.
there are friends and neighbors too, and
Right,
it's like
right.
that's that kind of leads into some of the cultural stuff that I love about here. People worry about animosity between locals and foreigners, and there just isn't any here. There just isn't. It's a place that, most of probably more than half of my friends are from here, are locals, and just in general, the attitude of people here is that you judge somebody by your interactions with them. Nobody's running around with stuff in their heads of this guy's from here, this guy looks this way, or and so they don't, there's some sort of animosity, or it just doesn't exist at all, at all, which I think also probably comes from Hollywood, but
It comes from Hollywood and social media. Now that I've been here now, and I see the social media comments on some of these groups, people that are saying this stuff about, local gringo dynamics or extranjero local dynamics. They're people. I'm realizing these people aren't even in Vilcabamba. They're not even. They don't even live in the area. They don't even live in. They've never even been to Ecuador. But they're the ones talking about the controversy.
The social media alarmism.
I'm like, what?
Off
What
the
is
charts.
this? This is insane. Like, these people don't even live here, and they're the ones creating the stink. And then people are. It's like this echo chamber of nonsense. And we're here. It's like we're spoiled here. We love this place, and you can see based on how the locals and Extra and Heralds come together in a time of, crisis like this. Man, it was awesome. People came together. There was no animosity. They love this place too. They're more proud of it than we are, right? This is their home. Like, we're just guests.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, you had something.
Well, just to frame the whole thing too, like that night where we had 50, 60 guys that came out to help. These were expats that got robbed that night. They weren't local people. So
Right.
the local community came to help expats that were being, robbed that night, which is important.
No, and again, this stuff, it all just ties back to the sort of cultural community stuff that, for me, is it's a big contributor to the quality of life, to the incredible quality of life here. You mentioned about the decisions you make as a parent, and I was thinking about that because I feel the same way, right? Like, there's lots of things I would not have let my daughter do back home that here I don't even think twice about. And I think part of the reason for that is because in general, especially in the rural areas, it's such a healthy society, it's such a healthy culture. You don't have all the mental health issues. You don't have all the crazies. You don't have guys, you don't have guys on the street that are like dangerous, that are mentally unstable, right? You don't have sort of like rapists running around or, people opportunistically looking to hurt someone. Everyone, there's no homeless, right? Like, there is a little bit now because there's some Venezuelans that have come through Ecuador in the last couple of years, but there's no, prior to when that happened a couple of years ago, in this region there was literally no such thing as seeing a homeless person. It does not exist. And that's because people here care about each other. They live together. They look out for one another. And if there's people who, maybe they do have, some sort of, they're damaged in some way or another and they can't support themselves, their family supports them, period, end of story, right? They live with mom and dad, or they live with whoever they live with, and people really take care of each other. So I think that's kind of part of the community and the safety thing also, is that the U.S. is a society that has a lot of problems, right? You have incredible mental health issues and suicide rates and all these kinds of things that go on. This is just a much more traditional, much healthier society in that way, and then it filters out to things like safety.
And it's so refreshing to actually be part of. Like, the community is real. The authenticity of the community, it is communal. It does feel family oriented, and it's not just lip service. Like, it's shown in actions every day, and you can feel it. It's palpable. It's really, really been refreshing for my family and I to be here.
And just to give an example of that, right? Like, Sunday in Ecuador is family day. Like you in Vilcabamba, for example, on Sunday, there's probably 5 times or more the population that there is on Monday.
Busiest day in Vilca.
People are here, and they're all with their families. So you'll have the kids with their kids, and then their parents, and then often a generation, often the grandparents as well, or the great-grandparents of the little kids running around, and they're going to the river, and they're eating ice cream, and they're eating at the restaurants, or they're having a beer, or they're just tooling around, walking the senderos, hanging out. And that's, like, if you try to get an Ecuadorian friend of yours to do something on Sunday, pretty much chances are the answer is no, because they're with their family that day. And that's just, that's just, again, another example of how close-knit the family unit and then the society in general is. I think part of that reason, too, it's a much less mobile society. So the same people have lived in the same places for generations.
Yeah.
So it creates an accountability to one another that you don't have in a society where, your aunts and uncles are in Tennessee and your mother's in Florida and your dad's in California and, your brother's in Washington and, you live in New York, and that's kind of a very disjointed, type of deal. So.
Yeah. And that's why reputation really matters here.
Yeah.
It's part of the culture. Everyone knows each other. If you want recommendations, you ask. We have a lot of trusted friends, and business partners where we can ask for recommendations, and everyone knows who's trustworthy and who's not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and so I wanted to touch on briefly, and we've maybe hit on some of it, but I wanted to touch on briefly just what's so special about this valley, to us, because we could live anywhere in the world. We all come from Canada, Chicago, New York, right? We come from totally different places, different backgrounds. People come here looking for different things, so on and so forth. And there's lots of options. Like my whole life, I wanted to live in the Caribbean. Like that's been my, I love the ocean, right? I just want white sands and turquoise water. That's always been my dream. But like, why do I stay at 5,000 feet elevation in the Andes Mountains that you see behind me? What makes me stay here? And for me, and there's a lot of things, right? There's the normal stuff everyone knows about. The weather is incredible all year, and the food, and the quality of life, and the safety, and there's all those kinds of things. But the sort of the things for me that keep me not wanting to sort of home base or live anywhere else is the community. It's the people, right? So and the lifestyle. So because it's a valley, right? You're never more than a few minutes drive from anything you're doing. So for me, right, I can wake up in the morning, go onto my roof deck, which we're sitting on now, do my morning routine looking at that view. Then a couple of days a week I go to this amazing yoga class after that. Then I'm with my kids for a lot of that time, right? There's not an hour commute into the city to sit in an office. And
wait a second, what your morning routine? What did it take?
Well, that's for another video, another day. But
is it like posing or
right?
What do you do on your?
It's ballet.
Ballet.
It's
Okay,
ballet.
all right. Definitely separate video.
So my kids, even though I work hard, right? I work a lot, but my kids are with me frequently during that. Oh, I got to run 20 minutes away and go check on a project we're doing. A lot of times my son will come with me. I'm up here doing my morning routine. The kids are in and out. They're asking me to pick fruits off that tree right there and hand it to them.
Daddy, how did you get your leg behind your head?
Okay, bro. So the lifestyle stuff, right? Sometimes if I'm stressed out, I'll just park by the river, which is under a minute, 1 minute walk, a 30-second drive from the office, and I'll walk along the sendero, surrounded by bamboo and nature and the beautiful river going by. If I want to, I'll go, immerse in the water. If you want, you do it for 10 minutes. You come out feeling fantastic and go to your next meeting, right? It's just a really...
He's done it.
Many times. It's just a really good lifestyle. And then the people, right? Just the quality of the people. Like there's all different kinds here. There's every walk of life is in Vilcabamba. There's everything from, barefoot hippies to really successful businessmen and everything in between, right? So you've got all walks of life, all belief systems, all community of every religion practically, right? You've got all kinds of people here, but there's just so many really solid, high quality people. That for me is something that I don't know where else to get that. Like I don't know where I would go live where I'd have the quality of humans around me, that I have here. So those are some of the things for me that's really special about this valley.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, same, really. I would say as a family, we've considered moving back to Canada. We've considered Mexico. We've considered other places, even Europe. We have family, and friends, Canada, U.S., my in-laws, they had a place in Mexico. So we consider all these places. But at the end of the day, what we have here and what we've built here, it wouldn't make any sense for us to try to start that over anywhere else. And, we visited Canada, even thinking we might move back there, but after 3-4 months, it was like, no way, we're going back to Vilcabamba. And you see that trend happen a lot with a lot of people. Like some people come here, they live here for a while, they kind of take it for granted. They're like, let's go try something else, and they usually move back here. In most cases, I know so many people that have left,
Yeah, it happens a lot,
that have decided to come back here because it was. And people have traveled the whole world, looking for the perfect place, and eventually said, you know what, Vilcabamba is hard to beat. So, the friendships that we've made here, the community, like you mentioned, those are some things that it'd be very hard to find anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, and I echo everything that they both said. And in addition to the community and the family-oriented everything that that Vilcabamba has to offer, the lifestyle here, just the general lifestyle of people is, tranquilo. It's like, it's refreshing in that it's not, it can be fast-paced if you want it to be. It can be whatever you want. But in general, it's not that, and it doesn't have to be. So you can actually breathe. You can take things in. You can, enjoy those moments with your children and with your families and, with your friends and with your partners and have some fun. And it's not as cutthroat or as bleeding edge or whatever the buzzwords are these days in business, that life has got to be fast and busy and next. Now there's puts and takes to that. Some people that are used to that are going to have a harder time adapting to that way of life. But once you're here, after that maybe 2-week or so period, I think, at least for my family and I, then you really start, it sinks in and it becomes, wow, this is actually kind of nice. It forces you to relax a little bit and unwind a little bit. And I could say that the stress levels in general for my children and my family are much lower as a baseline than they were, in our lifestyle in the States. And I would attribute that to the lifestyle that's available here and the community and the folks that are here to help you, and it feels really awesome to be part of.
I mean, people here are just nice. Also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like the people are just nice. You're
Yeah.
not. There's not all the airs and pretense and competition and who can say the thing that's most whatever at that moment. Like, people are simple. They're nice. They treat you well.
Right.
They care. They'll help you with anything. Like, they're just good in
Yeah.
general. Just good people. I mean, I'll give you an example the other day. Right? I had to go out to Catamayo, which is where the airport's located in this region, the Loja airport. I had to go out to Catamayo for a business matter. It was fairly stressful. It was hot out there. I was there for a number of hours. And then I've always seen that there's like a back way out to that airport. I've always seen this sign coming back for a waterfall, but I've never taken the time to go. I'm with my wife. We're on our way back. We're like, let's go check out the waterfall, right? We go down. It's this path. There's these 3 or 4 people sitting outside a house where the waterfall supposedly is. You can't see it from the road. So I stop. I say, hey, good afternoon, in Spanish, of course, hey, good afternoon, how's it going? Like, we're looking for the waterfall, whatever. I mean, I had a quick conversation. They're like, yeah, it's right through here, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, is there any kind of fee or anything? They're like, no. And so we walk through, these people's house, basically, on this path through their little orchard, down to this waterfall. It's this beautiful waterfall. There's no one around. We get naked and jump in the waterfall. It felt great, came out very refreshed and enjoyed the rest of the drive home. But it's like, you just have those kinds of opportunities available to you here, in great abundance.
This is on the Tambo Road.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
are Tambo.
Yeah.
I believe
Not the first one. So there's one like right outside Tambo. The next one after that, further towards Malacates.
I believe we might be selling the property where the waterfall comes from.
Okay.
Up in the hills.
Up in
Oh,
the hills.
no
yeah.
I think it's about a 45-minute walk or something.
Yeah, that's probably where the first. Yeah, okay, I think I know where you're saying.
Yeah, there's another. I just thought of another example of just the community friendliness. I was at a tienda the other day, and I thought I left my wallet at home, and I had bought like 3 or 4 5-gallon jugs of water. This Splendor water with the colloidal gold and silver was pretty awesome. And a couple of other items, and I didn't have. And it was like, I don't know, $25 or something worth of products, and I didn't have any money. And coming back from the States, I'm used to. I go to 7-Eleven or a grocery store, and I'm a dime short. Something's going back on the shelf. I'm not walking away here.
No problem.
It's no problem. Okay, come tomorrow. You pay me tomorrow, or come by later. I was like, okay, great. So it's like that, right? It's pretty refreshing to live in an area where that is an acceptable practice, but it's because of the trust. It's because the locals and gringos have created in general like a trust system where we can trust. They know you. They get to know you in the community. They get to know your families. You get to know their families. I know their kids. I know their grandkids. They know my children by name. They know when their birthdays are. So it's pretty cool. And then because of that, you have that relationship, and things like that happen. Where in the States, if I didn't have the money at the gas station or Walmart or Costco, you're out of luck. Put something back.
Even in Loja, I have had that experience many times where they don't know me, and I'm looking. Oh crap! Or maybe they don't have change, and they're just like, just come back and pay.
Right.
And they have no idea. I can just walk out and never come back. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And one of the other things too that I thought of is, people here tend, not everyone of course, but people here tend to be interested in a healthier lifestyle, and it's just a place that's very conducive to that, right? So clean, healthy, good food is just readily available, including an organic market on Saturday, right? Where you can go and get all your produce and all kinds of other stuff, and there's like a band playing.
Oh,
and
it's great.
Like, it's great. Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun.
And there's a meat market, and there's for example, there's no such thing as grass-fed beef in Ecuador. It's all grass-fed beef. What else would you feed a cow, right? But people here are generally, not generally, but a good amount of the community is interested in health, and that creates all these activities and opportunities based around health that are great, right? So there's hiking groups, and there's groups that go to the saunas, and groups that go to the waterfalls, and there's groups that there's probably 1.5 trillion yoga practitioners, and then there's all of these amazing, Carl hates when I exaggerate, there's all of these amazing health practitioners, right? There's world-class natural health practitioners of all kinds of different modalities that make their home here in the valley, which is amazing, right? You can go get a world-class massage, you can see a world-class chiropractor, you can see a world-class osteopath, you can see a world-class homeopathic doctor, you can, and on and on and on and on. I mean, even have stem cells and platelets and whatever all that stuff is. I don't even know what it is.
From all over the world, too. They're from all over the world.
Right. And so that's something for me that I really appreciate, too, about the Valley, just, again, into that lifestyle stuff. And, one thing, this is a shameless plug, but we are actually launching a Vilcabamba health retreat, or a health retreat, I should say. But it's focused on giving people from all over the world who want to work on their health access to the world-class health practitioners that make their home in Vilcabamba. In addition, Vilcabamba is known as the Valley of Longevity. I don't know if it has whatever that means, but it is a place that's conducive to health for sure. And so when you're going on the hikes, and you're doing the waterfall, and you're going horseback riding, those kinds of things are just and the food and all that stuff. That stuff's kind of conducive to health already. But then we also have, again, some of the best natural health practitioners in the world make their home here, and they're passionate people. Like, they're people who love helping people get better. And so we're actually going to be launching, we'll announce it in the next couple of weeks, a health retreat. So details to come. I'm not going to get into that now, but it's really going to be an amazing opportunity for people to get tremendous value. Stuff that would cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars back home for each practitioner over a really lengthy period of time. You can come here, get access to those same people at a fraction of the cost, and bang it out quickly.
And you get the bonus of the Valley of Longevity and the lifestyle that this place offers to boot, right? So you get the tranquility and the peace and the healthy food and the great climate, and you mentioned that it's all these attributes are conducive for living a generally healthier life, and that's kind of what I've seen in the last few years with folks that I met them when they had just come down, or they'd arrived at the same time, and now it's just a few years later, and they're generally healthier. They're a little trimmer, they're more active, because it's nice out all the time. So you can walk places, you can get out, you can go to the mountains, you can go hiking. People generally are more active here because there's no winter. There's times where it rains and you're out. You could be in your house for a couple hours, and then it's nice the rest of the day. So people are generally more active. They're doing more things, and then the food here is generally cleaner than than most places that you find, particularly in Vilcabamba, because of the organic market and some of the niche tiendas that cater to that lifestyle, that offer holistic and natural and organic and non-GMO, and a lot of those products that a lot of us really want to consume or put in our bodies, they're available here because there's enough people that are like-minded in that way, that want that stuff. So the tiendas and some of the local folks offer that here, which is pretty awesome to find in Valley of Longevity, Vilcabamba, in the Andes Mountains. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Something that you guys said made me think about this, that the culture here, I don't know if it's just Vilcabamba or countryside people compared to city folks, or if it's mostly this area, but most Ecuadorians are, not that they are trying to live a healthy lifestyle, but there's somewhat, everything is about health to some extent. Like they'll, every time you go to if your baby's sick, or if your child is sick, or if you're feeling, if you're feeling sick or whatever, they'll usually say, drink this juice, or have this herb, or make a tea with this thing, or you go to the market and this fruit's good for your lungs, and this fruit's good for the kidneys, and everything's about like healthy, medicinal herbalism and that kind of thing. Like that's what people use for medicine here before pharmaceuticals came in. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Like the culture here is about healthy living somewhat.
Yep.
It is the Valley of Longevity. I mean, there are people, I was just talking to a lady I gave a ride to this morning. Her grandma just turned 101-year-old, It's not that uncommon to see that here. Older folks, Ecuadorians, they still work in the field. They carry big bags of corn. They dig trenches at 70, 80 years old sometimes.
Yep.
Hike mountains, to go tend to their cows and things like this. So it's a very healthy people as well.
They put us to shame on those things.
Yes, it's pretty humbling. It's pretty humbling when an 80-year-old man can race you down a mountain and win.
Right. Me and Brandon are hobbling around with bad knees, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the herbalism though, that's an interesting one, because you learn about different herbs and plants, and there's folks in town that understand how to apply those and how to use those in the right way. And that, are they going to be part of the health retreat? Is there folks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's practitioners that teach you about herbalism, and there's natural makeup and natural health products. There's folks that really spend time and understand how to make quality hygiene products that are clean and organic. So that's available. My wife and daughter have taken a couple classes with some local folks that do that. But what else? There's acupuncturists and traditional Chinese medicine practitioners and naturopaths. I mean, you name the modality, there's somebody here that's high level.
Energy work and shamans,
sure.
And it gets as traditional or as out there as you want to get, and they're all great. Like they're not they're not folks who are crappy at what they do and just live here. They're literally world class in many cases. Folks that have written books and have training centers and are well known in their field, and it's a kind of a remarkable in that way. It's kind of remarkable. I always joke, like, I think there's probably the ratio of restaurants to population and the ratio of health practitioners to population has to be the highest in the world.
They put them up there,
in
man.
this town.
Yeah.
Or something else partly I think what you guys are touching on, it goes back to the fact that there's a large indigenous population in this country, right? And so some of that sort of ancestral or ancient knowledge really is still alive and well here. Right. So, and you can access it if you want. So people are, have that knowledge of, I've seen many women, they just go onto the side of the road and they're like, and grab all the plants they need to fix whatever, ailment that they're trying to help somebody with. And that sort of knowledge, it still exists here, which is cool. Not amongst everybody, not amongst city dwellers.
Right.
There's certainly, we're talking, like you mentioned, more in some of the rural areas and things like that. But it's cool. All right, we've talked for a while. Do you guys want to hit on anything else here before we
hit the list?
Before we wrap up? We do. We're gonna record a Q&A pod. We may even change clothes and do it right now. So don't tell anyone. But we took a bunch of questions in thanks to a video Carl put out on our YouTube channel. So that'll be coming out soon. We've got some vlogs as well in the queue that'll be coming out. Lots of exciting stuff. If you're an investor, There are really outsized ROI returns available here investing with us. We do residential development projects, so if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to any of us or info@abecuador.com.
Yeah, our Q2 project list is just about finalized, so we'll have all the Q2 projects available. So if you're interested to learn more about that, definitely reach out and we can get you that information.
Awesome. Anything else before we wrap?
We hope to see you here one day, and until then,
see you next time.
Have a great one, guys.
Ciao, guys. Is that the right way? Words? No. Is that it, or what are you?